I've watched enough people to know this. The coldest hearts often carry the deepest wounds. A man can build walls so high he forgets anyone's outside. A woman can travel 1,000 miles hoping for home only to knock on a door that won't open. I saw it happen once. Texas, 1872. The stagecoach lurched to a stop. Emily Carter's fingers went white around her carpetbag handle. Through the cracked leather curtain, a house with dark windows, no flowers in the beds, just weathered gray wood and silence. A man stood on the porch, arms crossed. He didn't move toward her. "You're smaller than I figured." His voice came flat. No warmth. Emily stepped down into the dust, looked at his sun-creased face, jaw set like fence wire, thumbs hooked in his belt. The letter in her pocket felt heavier now. 12 lines and no greeting. He picked up her trunk. Kitchen's through the back. Walked inside without looking at her. The driver spat tobacco. "Good luck, ma'am." Then the coach was gone. Emily stood alone before a house holding its breath. If you've ever taken a chance on something uncertain, I'd love to hear where you're watching from today. And if you've been enjoying these stories, consider subscribing. It truly means a lot. The kitchen smelled of dust and something sour. Old grease. Maybe, or neglect. Emily ran her finger along the edge of the cook stove. Cold iron. The ash pan hadn't been emptied in weeks. Mason jars lined the shelf above flour, sugar, coffee, their wax seals cracked, contents gone gray. She found a cast iron skillet under a pile of rags. Rust colored the rim like dried blood. The handle had been wrapped in burlap, and the burlap had rotted through. She scrubbed it anyway. Salt pork, cornbread, beans from a tin she'd brought in her trunk. Not much of a first supper, but it was hot. And it was ready when Caleb came in from the barn. He sat without washing his hands, hat still on, didn't look at the plate she set before him. His fork scraped tin. Emily sat across from him. The table was pine, rough-hewn, big enough for 6. They used 2 feet of it. She tried once. "Did your mother use this kitchen much?" His knife stopped mid-cut. "She's been dead 15 years. His voice came out like gravel. "Leave it be." The clock on the mantel ticked. Emily counted. 47 ticks before he pushed back his chair and walked out. The screen door banged behind him. She washed the dishes alone. That night, she lay in the small room off the kitchen, a rope bed, a straw mattress that smelled of cedar and something animal, the quilt she'd brought from home, her mother's double wedding ring. Pattern looked wrong here. Too bright, too hopeful. Footsteps in the hall, heavy, slow. Caleb's boots passed her door. Didn't stop. The floorboards in the front room creaked once, then nothing. Morning came gray and early. She made biscuits, used the last of her good flour, the lard she'd been saving, set them on the porch rail to cool while steam rose off them into the dawn air. The old ranch hand, Cody, the others called him, stopped on his way to the barn, took one, bit into it. His eyes closed. "Ma'am?" He pulled off his hat, held it against his chest. "That's the best biscuit I ate since my own mama passed. And she's been gone 30 years. Emily smiled. First real smile since she'd stepped off that stagecoach. From the barn doorway, Caleb watched. His hand tightened on the bridle in his grip. His jaw worked once, twice. Then he turned and walked into the shadows without a word. 2 weeks passed. Emily learned the rhythms of the ranch the way a new horse learns unfamiliar reins. She rose before dawn, lit the cook stove, put coffee on to boil in the blue enamel pot she'd found buried in the back of the pantry. By the time the sky turned pink over the eastern ridge, biscuits sat cooling on the windowsill and bacon popped in the skillet. Caleb came in at 6:30. Same routine, hat on, hands unwashed, eyes on his plate. But she noticed things now. The way he paused at the door before entering, the way his nostrils flared when he smelled fresh bread. Small things, cracks in the stone. Monday morning, she hung the washing on the line strung between the porch post and the old oak. Caleb's shirts, his work pants, a union suit she'd scrubbed until her knuckles went raw. She hummed while she worked. An old hymn her mother used to sing. The words came without thinking, soft as breath. Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. In the barn, 60 feet away, Caleb ran a curry brush down his gelding's flank. The brush stopped mid-stroke. His head turned toward the house. The humming drifted across the yard. Faint. Almost nothing. His mother used to sing that song. Sunday mornings. Standing at the stove in her blue apron, flour on her hands. Caleb's grip tightened on the brush. The horse shifted, stamped one hoof. He walked out the back of the barn and didn't come in until supper. The ranch hands took to Emily like strays to a warm hearth. Cody, the old one, with tobacco-stained fingers and a laugh like a rusty gate, showed up at the kitchen door every morning now. Young Pete, barely 19, followed close behind. They'd stand on the porch, hats in hand, waiting for biscuits. "Ma'am, I swear these are better than my grandmother's," Pete said one morning. Crumbs on his chin, Cody elbowed him. "Your grandmother couldn't cook worth a lick. I knew her." "You did not." "Did so. She burned water." Emily laughed. The sound carried across the yard, bright and unexpected. From the corral, Caleb watched, his hand stilled on the fence post he'd been mending. She found his torn shirt on the floor of the front room, ripped at the shoulder where barbed wire had caught it. He'd left it crumpled by the door like something discarded. Emily picked it up, examined the tear. Not too bad. She could fix it. That evening, after supper, she sat by the kerosene lamp with her needle and thread. Small stitches. Neat, the way her mother had taught her. When she finished, she pressed the collar flat with a hot iron and folded it careful as a letter. She left it on his bed. Didn't say anything. The next morning, Caleb stood in his room staring at the shirt. He picked it up, turned it over, found the mended shoulder stitches so small he could barely see them. He brought the collar to his face. Didn't mean to. Just happened. Soap. And something else. Rosemary. Maybe. Something soft. He put it on. The fabric settled against his skin, warm from the pressing. His jaw tightened. He walked out without looking in the mirror. Sunday came hot and bright. Emily stood in the kitchen doorway, her worn Bible pressed against her chest. "I'd like to attend church this morning." "In town?" Caleb looked up from his coffee. "It's 5 miles." "I know." He stared at her. She didn't look away. Something moved behind his eyes. Not anger. Something else. He set down his cup, pushed back from the table, walked out to the barn without a word. 10 minutes later, the wagon stood hitched and ready in the yard. He drove her himself. Didn't speak the whole way. The wheels creaked. The horse's hooves kicked up dust that coated Emily's dress in fine brown powder. At the church white clapboard, steeple reaching toward a sky so blue it hurt. Caleb pulled the wagon under a cottonwood tree and stayed in his seat. You're not coming in. I'll wait. Emily climbed down, walked up the steps, turned once at the door. He sat there in the shade, hat pulled low, arms crossed, like a man guarding something he refused to name. She came out an hour later carrying wildflowers, black-eyed Susans, Indian paintbrush, orange and yellow against the faded blue of her dress. Where'd those come from? The roadside and on the way in. She climbed up beside him. I thought they might brighten the kitchen. Caleb said nothing, clicked his tongue. The horses moved. That evening, the flowers sat in a cracked ceramic pitcher on the supper table. Blue glaze, chipped at the rim, his mother's pitcher. Emily must have found it somewhere. He stared at those flowers through the whole meal. Cornbread, stew, sliced tomato seedlings from the garden Emily had started out back. He took a second helping of stew, then a third, didn't say a word about the flowers. Later that night, Emily sat at the small table in her room, pen in hand, paper borrowed from the bottom of her trunk. Dear Martha, he is not cruel, just locked up tight, like a trunk nobody's opened in years. I do not know what is inside, but I think something is there, something worth finding. Your sister. Emily, she sealed the letter with candle wax, pressed her thumb into it, hoped the next stagecoach would carry it east, or would carry that. Friday afternoon, a rider came up the road, Tom Garrett, from the spread 3 miles north. Good land, good cattle, a widower with money in the bank and a smile that came too easy. He swung down from his horse, tipped his hat to Emily, who stood on the porch with a basket of mending. Mrs. Hayes, pleasure to see you. Mr. Garrett. Tom, please. His smile widened. There's a social in town 2 weeks from now. Church hall, fiddle music, dancing, pie auction. Whole county will be there. He glanced toward the barn. Thought I'd ride out and extend the invitation, personal-like. Caleb appeared in the barn doorway, arms crossed, face unreadable. Hayes, Tom nodded. Good to see you. Told your wife about the social. Hope you'll both come. Caleb's jaw tightened. His eyes moved from Tom to Emily, back to Tom. We'll think on it. Tom tipped his hat again, swung back up into his saddle. 2 weeks. Then I'll save you both a dance. He rode off smiling. Emily turned to Caleb. It might be nice to meet the neighbors. Caleb stared at the dust rising behind Tom Garrett's horse. His hands curled into fists at his sides. I said, we'll think on it. He turned and walked back into the barn. But that night, for the first time, he checked the kitchen window 3 times before bed just to see if her lamp was still burning. The chicken coop fence had rotted through at the bottom rail. Emily discovered it Tuesday morning when 3 hens escaped into the vegetable garden and ate half her tomato seedlings. She found a hammer in the barn, baling wire, a handful of nails, and a rusted coffee tin. The sun climbed high and hot. Sweat ran down her neck, soaked the back of her dress. Her sunbonnet calico, the ties frayed from washing, kept slipping down over her eyes. She pulled at the old wire. It snapped. The broken end whipped back and sliced across her palm. Blood welled up, bright red against her skin. Emily wrapped her hand in her apron, kept working. She didn't hear him approach. Just suddenly he was there, standing 3 feet away, watching her struggle with a fence slat that wouldn't sit straight. You're doing it wrong. She looked up. Caleb stood with his thumbs hooked in his belt, hat pulled low against the sun. Then show me right. He didn't answer, just walked forward, took the hammer from her hand, and knelt beside the broken rail. His hands moved quick and sure. He pulled the old nails, set the new slat, drove 3 nails home with 3 clean strokes. The sound rang out across the yard, metal on metal, sharp and final. Emily knelt beside him, held the wire while he twisted it tight with pliers. Their shoulders almost touched. She could smell him now. Sweat and leather and something like sage. The sun had darkened his forearms below his rolled sleeves. Veins stood out on the backs of his hands. They worked without speaking, rail after rail, wire after wire. The rhythm settled between them like something that had always been there, waiting when they finished. The fence stood solid and straight. Caleb ran his hand along the top rail, checking for wobble. Found none. That'll hold. Emily wiped her forehead with the back of her wrist. Thank you. He looked at her apron, at the blood soaking through. His eyes narrowed. You're hurt. It's nothing. He reached out, took her hand before she could pull away, turned it palm up. The cut ran diagonal across her lifeline, still seeping red. His fingers were rough against her skin, calloused, warm. Needs cleaning. He let go, stepped back. There's carbolic in the barn. He walked away without waiting for an answer. By the corral, Cody and young Pete leaned against the fence, watching. Boss been in a strange mood lately, Cody muttered, rolling a cigarette between his yellowed fingers. Pete's eyebrows shot up. Strange how caught him whistling yesterday. Whistling. Swear on my mother's grave. Cody lit his cigarette, drew deep, let the smoke curl out his nose. And just now you see that he touched her hand. Pete squinted toward the chicken coop. Reckon it's the woman. Reckon so. Cody took another drag. About time something thawed that man out. That night, supper stretched longer than usual. Emily had made stew again, beef this time. From the steer Caleb had slaughtered last week. Carrots and potatoes from the root cellar. Cornbread on the side, still warm from the oven. Caleb ate slow, didn't bolt his food the way he usually did. You built all this yourself. Emily nodded toward the window, toward the barn and the corrals beyond. The whole spread. Me and Pa. His fork paused. Before he passed. He'd be proud. I think. Caleb's jaw worked. He set down his fork, stared at his plate. He wasn't the proud type. He was the don't complain, don't explain type. And you... The clock ticked 5 times, 6. Still figuring that out, Emily waited. Didn't push. Just sat with her hands folded on the table, her bandaged palm hidden in her lap. Caleb picked up his fork, put it down again. Drought hit in 68. His voice came out rough, like he hadn't used these words in years. Worst one since anybody could remember. Creeks dried up, grass turned to dust, cattle started dying in the fields. He stopped, swallowed. Pa was already sick by then. Couldn't hardly get out of bed, so it was just me, 18 years old, watching everything we'd built turn to bones and dry hide. Emily's hand moved across the table, stopped an inch from his forearm. I buried 30 head that summer, dug the pits myself, dragged the carcasses in, covered them up. His eyes stayed on his plate. Took me 3 weeks. By the end, my hands were so raw, I couldn't make a fist. Her fingers touched his arm, light, barely there. He didn't pull it away. Pa died that October. Right before the first rain came, a muscle jumped in his jaw. His last words to me, "Feelings are for soft men. Boy, you want to survive out here. You stay hard." The lamp flame flickered. Shadows moved across the walls. Emily's hand stayed where it was, warm against his skin. "My pa used to say something too," she said quietly. "He'd say, 'Hard ground don't grow much of anything worth keeping.'" Caleb looked up, met her eyes for the first time since she'd arrived at this ranch. Something shifted in his face. Not softness, not yet, but something underneath. Something cracking. He stood abruptly, pushed back his chair, walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the frame. "Fence looks good." His voice came out thick. "You did all right." He walked out into the dark. The next morning, Emily found something on the kitchen table. A small clay pot. Inside it, a rosemary cutting, freshly planted. Roots just starting to show through the drainage hole. No note. No explanation. She set it on the windowsill above the sink, where it would catch the morning light. Touched the soft green needles with her fingertip. Outside the barn. Caleb brushed down his horse and tried not to think about the way her hand had felt on his arm. Tried not to remember the last time anyone had touched him without wanting something. He failed. And somewhere deep in his chest, in that place he'd kept locked since he was 18 years old, something stirred, something that felt like the first green shoot pushing up through hard-packed earth. He didn't know what to call it, but it scared him more than any drought ever had. The church hall smelled of pine resin and kerosene and too many bodies pressed together in the July heat. Caleb stood near the back wall, tin cup of cider in his hand, watching the crowd. Farmers in clean shirts, their wives in Sunday dresses, children chasing each other between the wooden benches pushed against the walls. The fiddle player tuned his strings. The squeeze box wheezed a practiced note. Emily stood beside him. Her cream cotton dress caught the lamplight. Mother-of-pearl buttons ran down the front, and a bit of lace trimmed her collar. Nothing fancy. She'd sewn it herself. She'd told him. Back in Pennsylvania, before she answered his advertisement. 3 men turned to look when she walked in. Caleb's hand found the brim of his hat. He pulled it lower. "You want some cider?" His voice came out rough. "That would be nice." He walked to the table, poured her a cup, walked back. Their fingers touched when he handed it to her. He pulled away too fast. The music started. A reel first, fast and bright. Young couples spun across the pine plank floor while the older folks clapped along from the benches. Emily's foot tapped against the floor. Her shoulders swayed with the rhythm. The bandage on her palm had come off 2 days ago. The cut now a thin pink line beginning to fade. "You could dance," she said, "if you wanted. Got 2 left feet." "I don't believe that." "Believe what you want." She looked up at him. Something flickered in her eyes, disappointment. Maybe, or something else, but she didn't push. The reel ended. The fiddle slowed into a waltz. Tom Garrett appeared out of the crowd, clean white shirt, hair slicked back with pomade, that smile of his spreading wide across his face. "Mrs. Hayes." He dipped his head. "Would you do me the honor?" Emily glanced at Caleb, waited. He shrugged one shoulder. "Go on, then." Tom took her hand, led her onto the floor. Caleb watched them go. His grip tightened on his tin cup. Tom Garrett danced well. Smooth steps. Easy turn. His hand settled on Emily's waist like it belonged there. They moved together across the floor. Other couples made room. The kerosene lanterns hung from the rafters, casting yellow light that caught the copper in Emily's hair. Caleb's cup dented under his fingers. An older woman near the punch table leaned toward her husband. Her whisper carried farther than she meant it to. "Hayes got himself a pretty one. Wonder if he knows what to do with her." Her husband snorted. "That one, doubt he knows what to do with anything soft." Caleb's jaw locked. His teeth ground together. On the floor. Tom leaned close to Emily's ear, said something. She laughed a real laugh, warm and surprised, and her hand touched his shoulder. Something hot and sharp twisted in Caleb's chest. His vision narrowed. Blood pounded in his ears. He set down his cup, walked toward the door, didn't look back. The night air hit him like cold water. He sucked it in, once, twice, tried to steady the rhythm of his breathing. Stars scattered across the sky. The wagon sat where he'd left it, under the cottonwood tree. The horses stamped and shifted, eager to be home. Caleb leaned against the wagon bed, crossed his arms, stared at nothing. Inside, the music played on. Laughter drifted through the open window. Someone called for another waltz. He didn't go back in. Emily found him an hour later. Her cheeks were flushed. A strand of hair had come loose from her pins. "There you are." She stopped 3 feet away. "I looked everywhere. Been right here. The whole time." "Yep." She climbed up onto the wagon seat, arranged her skirts, waited for him to join her. He climbed up, took the reins, clicked his tongue. The horses moved. They rode in silence for a mile. The moon hung fat and white above the ridge. Crickets sang in the tall grass on either side of the road. "Tom Garrett's a good dancer," Emily said finally. "Looked like it. He asked about you. Said he doesn't see you in town much. Nothing to see me for." Another half mile. The wagon wheels creaked. A coyote called somewhere in the distance. "You could have danced." Emily's voice came out quiet. "Just once. Wouldn't have hurt anything." "Said I don't dance?" "You said you had 2 left feet. That's not the same thing." Caleb's knuckles went white on the reins. "It is to me." Emily turned to face him. In the moonlight, her eyes looked silver. "Why did you leave? You didn't even say goodbye. Didn't see the need." "The need." Her voice sharpened. "I was looking for you. I didn't know where you gone. Now you know." She stared at him, waiting, wanting something he couldn't give. He kept his eyes on the road. After a long moment, she turned away, faced forward, her hands folded tight in her lap. They rode the last 2 miles without speaking. At the ranch, Caleb unhitched the horses while Emily went inside. The lamp in the kitchen flared to life. He watched her shadow move behind the curtains she'd sewn herself, hung herself, because the windows had been bare for 15 years. He led the horses to the barn, let them cool before he watered them, brushed them down slow, took twice as long as he needed to. When he finally walked up to the house, the lamp in Emily's room had gone dark. He stood on the porch, stared at her window, Tom Garrett's hand on her waist, her laugh, warm and easy, the way she'd touched his shoulder. Caleb's chest burned, his hands curled into fists. He knew what this was, had seen it in other men. that hot, sick feeling that crawled up from the gut and wrapped around the heart. Jealousy. He'd never felt it before. Never had cause to. Never let anyone close enough to matter. But she mattered. The realization hit him like a kick from a horse, knocked the breath out of him, made his knees go weak. She mattered. This woman he'd ordered from a newspaper advertisement. This woman who hummed while she worked and planted rosemary on the windowsill and touched his arm like he was something worth touching. She mattered. And that scared him worse than any drought, worse than any stampede, worse than anything he'd faced in 33 years of hard living. Because if she mattered, she could leave, she could be taken, she could die, and he would be alone again, alone in this empty house with nothing but silence and the echo of his father's voice telling him that feelings were for soft men. Caleb walked inside, closed the door, sat in the dark kitchen with his head in his hands. Tomorrow, he told himself, tomorrow he would fix this, find his footing, build those walls back up. But when he finally climbed into bed, it wasn't his father's voice he heard. It was Tom Garrett's. "Your husband's a lucky man, Mrs. Hayes." And Emily's answer, soft and sad, he might not see it that way. The general store sat at the end of Main Street, wedged between the feed depot and the land office. Emily pushed through the door and heard the bell jingle overhead. Inside, the air smelled of tobacco and pickle brine, and the sawdust scattered across the pine floor. Wooden barrels lined the walls, flour, sugar, coffee beans, salt pork. A brass scale sat on the counter, weights arranged neat as soldiers beside it. Emily pulled her market basket higher on her arm. She needed flour, salt, a tin of baking powder if they had it. Two women stood near the pickle barrel. Mrs. Hadley from the dry goods store and Mrs. Pembroke, whose husband ran the livery. They wore matching expressions, polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. "Mrs. Hayes," Mrs. Hadley dipped her head. "Good to see you in town. Ladies?" "We were just talking about the quilting circle," Mrs. Pembroke said. "Meets every Thursday at my place. You should join us." Emily's hand paused on a bolt of calico. "I'd like that." "Wonderful." Mrs. Hadley's smile tightened at the corners. "We'll expect you next week. Then—" The women moved toward the back of the store. Emily turned to the flour barrel, reached for the scoop. Behind her, the whispers started. "You think Hayes actually shares a bed with her?" Mrs. Hadley's voice, pitched low but not low enough. "That man's got ice for blood." Mrs. Pembroke giggled. "Mail-order bride. Can you imagine, like ordering a plow from a catalog?" "At least a plow's useful." More giggling. Emily's hand tightened on the scoop. She kept her back straight, kept filling her sack. The bell over the door jingled. Caleb walked in. He wore his leather vest, the one with bone buttons. His hat sat low on his forehead. He nodded once to the shopkeeper, a heavy-set man named Willard with a waxed mustache, and moved toward the back wall where the tools hung. "Hey, Willard's voice boomed across the store. "Good to see you. That wife of yours has got this whole place civilized. Even heard you've been eating regular meals now." A man at the counter, rancher from the looks of him, sunburned face, cracked hands let out a snort. "Regular meals from Hayes, that'd be a first." Another man joined in. "Makes a man wonder why you even bothered with a mail-order bride. You ain't exactly the marrying kind." Laughter rippled through the store. Good-natured, maybe. The kind of ribbing men gave each other on a Saturday morning. But Emily saw Caleb's shoulders go rigid. saw his jaw lock, saw his hands curl at his sides. Ain't nothing romantic about it. His voice cut through the laughter like a blade. The store went quiet. Caleb stood near the tool rack, a coil of rope in his hands. His eyes stayed fixed on the wall. He didn't look at Emily, didn't look at anyone. Just practical. Needed someone to manage the house. His voice came out flat, hard. She cooks. I provide. Square deal. That's the whole of it. No one moved. Emily stood by the flour barrel. The scoop hung loose in her grip. White powder dusted the front of her dress. Ain't a real marriage. Caleb's words dropped like stones into still water. Just business. Just an arrangement. Someone coughed. Emily set down the scoop. Her hands moved slow and steady. She set down the half-filled flour sack, set down her market basket. She didn't cry, didn't argue. Her face went smooth and empty, like a window with the curtain drawn. She turned, walked toward the door, past Caleb without looking at him, close enough to touch. She didn't touch him. The bell jingled as she pushed through. The door swung shut behind her. Silence. Willard cleared his throat. You might want to go after her. Hayes. Caleb didn't move. His knuckles had gone white around the rope. I'll take this. He dropped the coil on the counter, fished coins from his pocket. And whatever she was buying, he paid, gathered the supplies, walked out. The wagon sat where he'd left it, in the shade of the general store's awning. Emily already sat on the bench seat, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the street ahead. Caleb loaded the supplies in the back, climbed up beside her, took the reins. He clicked his tongue. The horses moved. They rode out of town in silence, past the church with its white steeple, past the blacksmith's forge, where hammer rang on iron, past the last houses, where children played in dusty yards and dogs barked at their wheels. The road opened up ahead of them. Brown grass on either side, blue sky above. 5 miles of nothing between here and home. Caleb's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Emily. One word, quiet, final. He closed his mouth. They rode on. 2 miles passed. 3. The sun climbed higher. Sweat trickled down Caleb's back, soaked his shirt beneath the leather vest. He tried again. What I said back there. I heard what you said. I didn't mean yes. Her voice came out strange, hollow. You did? She turned to look at him. Her eyes were dry. That was worse somehow. Worse than tears. Worse than anger. You meant every word. Caleb. You believe it. That's why you said it. His throat worked. Nothing came out. I came here for a home. She turned back to the road. I knew it wouldn't be easy. I knew you weren't, that you didn't. She stopped, drew a breath. But I thought maybe, in time, I thought maybe there was something here worth building. The wagon wheels creaked. The horses' hooves clopped against the packed dirt. I was wrong. Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. The leather cut into his palms. Emily, listen to me. No. She shook her head. Once. Slow. I have been listening. For 6 weeks I've been listening. To your silence. To your closed doors. To the way you look past me like I'm not even there. She folded her hands tighter. Her knuckles went white. I can't make you love me, Caleb. I wouldn't even know how to try, but I won't be your arrangement anymore. I won't be your square deal. The ranch house appeared over the ridge. Smoke curled from the kitchen chimney. Cody must have started the stove. Emily looked at it. Her jaw tightened. I'll stay until I can arrange passage back east. A week, maybe 2. Then I'll be out of your way. The wagon rolled into the yard, stopped before the porch. Emily climbed down without waiting for help, walked up the steps, disappeared inside. The screen door banged shut behind her. Caleb sat in the wagon. The reins hung slack in his hands. The horses stamped, waiting to be unhitched. He didn't move. Inside the house, he heard her moving, her drawers opening and closing. Heard the creak of the floorboards in the room off the kitchen. She was packing. The realization hit him like a fist to the chest. She was packing. She was leaving, and he had driven her to it. With his own words, his own pride, his own fear, he climbed down from the wagon, unhitched the horses, led them to the barn, did everything slow and mechanical, like a man moving underwater. When he came out, the sun had dropped below the ridge, and Emily's lamp was already dark. Emily didn't sleep. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick in the other room. Every hour that passed felt like a stone dropping into still water. By the time the first gray light touched the window, she had counted every crack in the boards above her bed. She rose, lit a candle, pulled out the carpet bag, the same one she'd carried off the stagecoach 6 weeks ago. Same tarnished brass clasp, same faded blue calico lining. She folded her second dress, laid it inside, then her apron, the one from home, patched twice at the pocket, then her mother's quilt, the double wedding ring pattern that had looked so wrong in this room, so hopeful. She didn't take the rosemary plant from the kitchen windowsill. Didn't take the curtains she'd sewn. Those belonged to the house now, to him. The candle guttered. Wax pooled on the tin holder. Emily sat at the small table by the window, found a scrap of brown butcher paper, dipped her pen in the ink bottle she'd brought from Pennsylvania. Her hand shook once. She steadied it. Reckon I ain't what you needed after all. I won't trouble you no more. Mind that stew don't burn dry. Anchia signed it, with just her initial. E. No accusations, no anger. What would be the point? She weighted the note down with the sugar bowl, picked up her carpet bag, walked through the kitchen without looking back. The screen door didn't squeak. She'd oiled the hinges last week. Outside, the sky had gone gray at the eastern edge. Not dawn yet. Close. Emily walked down the porch steps, crossed the yard, darted down the road toward town, 5 miles. She'd done it before. Caleb woke to silence. His eyes opened, stared at the ceiling. Something was wrong. Something was missing. No coffee smell drifting from the kitchen. No clatter of the stove grate. No humming. He sat up, swung his legs off the bed. His bare feet hit the cold pine floor. Emily. His voice echoed off the walls, came back empty. He pulled on his pants, his shirt, walked into the main room. The kitchen stood dark, cold. The cook stove held nothing but gray ash. The table was set for one, a bowl, a spoon, a covered pot of leftover stew, and a scrap of brown paper, weighted down by the sugar bowl. Caleb crossed the room, picked up the note, read it once, read it again. Reckon I ain't what you needed after all. His hand closed around the paper, crumpled it, smoothed it out, read it a third time. The words didn't change. He walked through the house like a man walking through a graveyard. The room off the kitchen, her room, stood empty. Beds stripped to the rope frame, wash basin dry. The nail where she'd hung her Sunday dress held nothing but air. The kitchen, the curtains she'd sewn hung in the windows. The herbs she'd planted dried above the stove, rosemary, thyme, sage. The cracked ceramic pitcher sat on the table. But the flowers inside had gone brown and brittle, dead for days. He hadn't noticed, hadn't seen them dying. The rocking chair on the porch, the one that had faced the wall for 15 years. Until Emily turned it toward the yard. Empty now, still. The clock on the mantel ticked. That was all. Just the clock. Tick, tick, tick. Caleb stood in the kitchen doorway. His eyes found the nail by the stove. Emily's apron hung there, the patched one, the one she'd worn every day, hem coming loose at the corner. She'd left it behind. He crossed the room, took it down, held it in his hands. His fingers found the patches, found the loose hem, found the places where she'd mended it herself. Stitches small and neat. He brought it to his face. Didn't mean to. Just happened. Soap. Rosemary. Something soft. Her. His legs buckled. He dropped to his knees on the kitchen floor, the apron pressed against his face. His shoulders heaved. No tears. He hadn't cried since he was 8 years old. Standing beside his mother's grave while his father told him to stop sniveling. But something inside him was breaking, something that had held for 25 years, cracking apart. That's how Cody found him. The old ranch hand pushed through the screen door at 6:30, same as every morning, stopped dead in the doorway. Boss. Caleb knelt on the kitchen floor, apron clutched in his fists, head bowed. Cody looked around, took in the cold stove, the empty room, the stripped bed visible through the open doorway. She left. Caleb didn't answer, didn't lift his head. Cody walked closer. His boots scraped the pine boards. He squatted down until his knees popped. His weathered face held something Caleb had never seen there before. Pity. The word hit Caleb like a slap. Pity. This old man, this hired hand who'd worked for his father, who'd watched Caleb grow from a boy into a man, was looking at him with pity. And Caleb deserved it. Every bit of it. What did you do? Caleb's voice came out raw, scraped. What I always do, which is exactly what my pa taught me. Cody was quiet for a long moment. The clock ticked. A horse whinnied out in the corral. Your pa was a hard man. Cody's voice dropped low. Hard as this land, hard as the drought that killed his cattle. He paused. But he was wrong about some things, wrong about a lot of things. Caleb lifted his head, looked at this old man who'd never spoken more than 10 words at a time in all the years he'd known him. Feelings ain't weakness, son. I've worked this ranch 30 years. Watched you grow from a boy into a man. And the weakest thing I ever saw you do wasn't feeling something. Cody's eyes held his. It was running from it. The words hit like a boot to the chest. Caleb looked down at the apron in his hands, at the patches, the loose hem, the places she'd touched. His father's voice echoed in his head. Feelings are for soft men. Boy. And then another voice. Emily's voice. Quiet in the lamplight. Hard ground don't grow much of anything worth keeping. He'd spent his whole life being hard. Hard like his father. Hard like the drought. hard like the dirt he'd dug to bury 30 head of cattle. And what had it gotten him? An empty house, a cold stove, a woman walking away down a dusty road because he'd been too proud to tell her she mattered, too scared. The shame rose up then, not sadness shame, deep and black and suffocating. He'd stood in that store and said those words, in front of everyone, called her an arrangement, called her a square deal, like she was livestock, like she was nothing, and she'd heard every word, taken it without flinching, walked out with her head high while he stood there like a fool, like a coward. His father hadn't been strong. His father had been afraid. Afraid to love, afraid to lose, afraid to feel anything at all. And Caleb had followed him, step by step, right down into the same empty grave. He pushed himself to his feet. His legs shook. His hands shook. What time does that stage leave? 8 sharp. Cody's eyes narrowed. She's probably halfway to town by now. You got maybe an hour. Caleb looked at the apron in his hands, set it down on the table, gentle, like it was something precious. Saddle my horse. Cody didn't move. You sure about this? Caleb met his eyes, and for the first time in years, something burned there. Something that looked almost like hope. No. He grabbed his hat from the hook by the door. But I'm done being sure. Sure ain't done me a bit of good. He walked out into the gray morning light. The sun was just clearing the ridge, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. 1 hour, 5 miles. He'd ridden faster for less. Caleb threw the saddle onto his bay gelding's back. His hands moved fast. Cinch strap, breast collar, bridle bit. The horse stamped. Sensing urgency, Cody appeared at the barn door, held out Caleb's hat. You drop this inside and... Caleb grabbed it, jammed it on his head. Ride fast, boss. Cody stepped back. And when you get there, tell her the truth. All of it. Even the parts that scare you. Caleb swung up into the saddle. The leather creaked under his weight. He gathered the reins, kicked his heels hard. Gravel sprayed. The horse lunged forward, and Caleb Hayes rode like he'd never ridden before. The road stretched ahead, brown and dusty under the morning sun. Caleb leaned low over the gelding's neck. Wind tore at his shirt, whipped his hat brim back. 5 miles. He'd done it in 40 minutes before, taking it easy. He wasn't taking it easy now. The horse's hooves pounded the packed dirt. Muscles bunched and released beneath him. Foam started to fleck the animal's neck, its chest. Caleb pushed harder. His father's voice rose up from somewhere deep. That cold, hard voice that had shaped him since childhood. Feelings are for soft men. Boy, you want to survive out here. You stay hard. The words had lived in his head for 25 years, had built walls around his heart, had kept him safe and alone, safe and empty, Eve and dying by inches in a house full of silence. The horse's stride lengthened. The world blurred past brown grass, fence posts, the skeleton of a dead oak struck by lightning years ago. You were wrong, old man. His voice came out hoarse. The wind swallowed it. He said it again, louder. Let the words tear out of him like something buried too long. You were wrong about everything. His hat caught a gust, lifted off his head, tumbled away behind him into the dust. He didn't stop. 3 miles gone. The horse's coat had gone dark with sweat. Foam dripped from the bit. Its breathing came hard and ragged. Caleb eased up, just a fraction. Couldn't kill the horse. couldn't arrive on foot. But he didn't slow much. The road curved around a stand of mesquite trees, the land opened up ahead, and there in the distance, the rooftops of town, the church steeple rose white against the blue sky. The false fronts of Main Street lined up like dominoes. Miller's Hotel, 2 stories tall, stood at the far end, and in front of it, a stagecoach, 4 horses in harness, the driver up on the box, gathering his reins. Caleb kicked the gelding one more time. He passed the spot where he'd first seen her. 6 weeks ago. Late afternoon, the stagecoach had stopped right here at the edge of his property. He'd stood on the porch with his arms crossed, watching a woman in a faded blue dress step down into the dust. She'd looked smaller than he'd expected, younger. Her fingers had been white around the handle of her carpet bag. He'd measured her like a piece of equipment, like a plow or a harrow, something useful, something without feelings, something that couldn't hurt him. His chest burned, his eyes stung. Dust, maybe, or something else. The town came up fast. Caleb pulled the gelding back to a canter as he hit Main Street. People turned to stare. A woman grabbed her child out of the way. A dog barked and ran. He didn't see any of them. Miller's Hotel, the stagecoach, the driver wrapping his reins around the brake handle, and Emily. She stood beside the coach, her carpet bag at her feet. The same bag, the same dress, like the last 6 weeks, had been erased. She looked up at the sound of hooves. Her face didn't change. No surprise, no hope, nothing. She'd learned to protect herself. He'd taught her that. Caleb pulled the horse to a stop, swung down before the animal had fully halted. His boots hit the dirt. He stumbled, caught himself. The gelding's sides heaved. Foam dripped from its mouth. It stood with its head low, blowing hard. Caleb walked it to the water trough, but didn't let it drink yet too hot, too winded. The horse would have to wait. He turned back to Emily. 10 feet between them, then 8, then 5. He stopped. The whole street was watching. Willard from the general store, standing in his doorway. Mrs. Hadley and Mrs. Pembroke on the boardwalk, mouths open. Tom Garrett across the street, leaning against a hitching post with his arms crossed. Caleb didn't see any of them, just Emily, standing there with her carpet bag, ready to leave, ready to disappear from his life forever. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. All those words he'd rehearsed on the ride gone, all the things he'd planned to say vanished. His mind went blank as fresh snow. He stood there, chest heaving, sweat running down his face, hatless, dusty, horse foam on his pants. And for the first time in 33 years of hard living, Caleb Hayes had absolutely no idea what to say. The stage driver cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we're burning daylight here." Emily didn't move. Her eyes stayed on Caleb. Waiting, the silence stretched. 1 second, 2, 3. Behind him, someone whispered. A child laughed. A horse stamped. Caleb's hands hung at his sides. Empty, useless. Say something. Anything. Tell her. But his father's voice was there too, even now, even after everything. "Don't be soft, boy. Don't be weak." Emily bent down, picked up her carpet bag. Caleb's heart slammed against his ribs. She turned toward the stagecoach, put one foot on the step. Something cracked inside him, something that had been locked up since he was 8 years old, standing beside his mother's grave. Wait. The word came out broken. Emily stopped, one foot on the step, one hand on the rail. She didn't turn around. "What are you doing here?" "Caleb." Her voice came out flat, tired. He took a step forward, then another, trying to undo the stupidest thing I ever done. She turned then, looked at him over her shoulder. "Which one you got a list?" He almost laughed. Almost. "I know it." The stage driver shifted on his seat. "Ma'am, I got a schedule to keep." Emily held up one hand, reluctant to look away from Caleb. "Give us a minute." The driver sighed, leaned back, pulled out a plug of tobacco. Emily stepped down from the coach, set her carpet bag on the boardwalk, folded her arms across her chest. "You rode all this way." Her voice held nothing. No warmth, no anger. Just words. "You got something to say? Say it." Caleb stood before her, covered in dust and sweat, hatless, pride gone, walls gone, just a man, stripped bare, with nothing left to hide behind, and everything to lose. Caleb's throat locked. The words sat in his chest like stones. Emily waited. The whole town waited. The stage driver spat tobacco juice into the dust. Caleb wiped the sweat from his face with the back of his hand, opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "My pa taught me something when I was 8 years old." His voice came out rough, scraped raw. "Day we buried my mother, I was crying, couldn't stop, and he grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises, and he said, 'Feelings are for soft men. Boy, you want to survive out here. You stay hard.'" Emily's arms stayed crossed. Her face stayed still. I believed him. Caleb swallowed. "Built my whole life on it. Every wall I put up, every person I pushed away." His hands hung at his sides, empty. "I thought I was being strong, thought I was surviving." He stopped. The words wouldn't come easy. They never had. "Then you came." His voice cracked. He didn't try to hide it. "You came with your carpet bag and your apron and your hymns. You came into that empty house and you made it something else. Something I didn't know I needed." Emily's chin lifted. Just a fraction. "You planted rosemary on the windowsill, hung curtains, made biscuits that Cody said were better than his dead mama's." A sound escaped him, almost a laugh, almost something else. "You touched my arm when I told you about the drought, like I was something worth touching." His eyes burned. He blinked hard. "And I let you walk away." The words dropped like lead. "Said those things in front of everybody. Called you an arrangement, a square deal." He stopped. His jaw worked. "That was wrong. But I love it. Every word." Emily's arms loosened, fell to her sides. "Pretty words." Her voice came out steady, quiet. "That's all they are, Caleb. Words." His face fell. "I didn't come all this way for words." She took a step toward him. "I came for a home. Real one. Not an arrangement. Not a business deal. I know. Do you—" Her eyes searched his face. "Because tomorrow you'll wake up and you'll be scared again. And the day after that, your pa's voice isn't going to disappear just because you rode fast and said some things in front of a crowd." Caleb nodded. Slow, heavy. "I know that too. Then what are you offering me?" Her voice sharpened. "What changes when we ride back to that ranch?" He was quiet for a long moment. The stage driver coughed, checked his pocket watch. I can't promise I'll be good at this. Caleb's words came slow, careful. Can't promise I won't mess up, close off, say the wrong thing. He met her eyes. But I can promise I'll try, every day, even when it's hard, even when I'm scared. Emily's jaw tightened. You got to talk to me, Caleb. Her voice held iron, not hold everything inside. When something's wrong, you say it. When you're hurting, you tell me. That's my price. I ain't good at talking, I noticed. A ghost of something flickered across her face. You'll learn. He almost smiled. Almost. Everything I got. He held out his hand, work-roughened, calloused, trembling slightly in the morning air. It ain't much. Ain't pretty. But it's yours. If you want it. Emily looked at his hand, at his face, at the sweat drying on his brow and the dust caked on his shirt, and the way his eyes held hers without flinching, hatless, stripped bare. She took his hand. The stage driver threw up his arms. Well, I guess that's that. He gathered his reins, clicked his tongue. The four-horse team lurched forward. The coach rolled away down Main Street, Emily's seat empty. Her carpet bag sat on the boardwalk, forgotten. Caleb walked his horse to the water trough, let it drink slow. Now that it had cooled, Emily stood beside him, her hand still in his. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. They rode home together on the bay gelding. Emily sat in front, Caleb's arms around her as he held the reins. The horse walked slow now, tired from its hard run. The road stretched ahead, brown and familiar. The sun climbed higher, burning off the morning chill. Caleb's chest pressed against her back. His chin nearly touched her hair. She smelled like soap and rosemary and something else, something that felt like home. When the ranch house came into view, something caught in his throat. Smoke curled from the kitchen chimney. Cody had started the stove. But it was more than that. The house looked different somehow. The curtains Emily had sewn hung in the windows. The garden she'd planted showed green against the brown dirt. The rocking chair sat on the porch, facing outward, toward the road, toward the world. Looks like home, Emily said softly. Caleb's arms tightened around her, just slightly. It is now. That evening, lamplight glowed in every window. Emily stood at the cook stove, stirring a pot of stew. The rosemary plant sat on the windowsill above the sink, green and alive in the golden light. Caleb sat in the rocking chair on the porch, facing outward, watching the sun drop below the ridge. From inside, he heard her humming. That old hymn, the one his mother used to sing, "Abide with me, fast falls the eventide." He closed his eyes, let the sound wash over him. Cody walked by on his way to the bunkhouse, stopped, looked at Caleb, sitting there with his eyes closed, face turned toward the last of the light. The old man didn't say anything, just smiled, touched the brim of his hat, kept walking. Tomorrow there would be fences to mend and cattle to tend, and 1,000 small silences to break. Tomorrow the work would start, the real work, the hard work of learning to be something other than what his father had made him. But tonight, there was just this lamplight in the windows, stew on the stove, a woman humming in the kitchen. Emily appeared in the doorway, wiped her hands on her apron, the patched one, back where it belonged. Supper's ready. Caleb stood, crossed the porch, stopped in front of her. He reached out, touched her face, let his palm rest against her cheek. She didn't pull away, just looked up at him with those eyes that had seen right through him from the very first day. "Thank you," he said, "for staying." Emily placed her hand flat on his chest, felt his heart beating steady beneath her palm. "Thank you for coming after me." She turned, walked back inside. Caleb followed her into the warmth and the light, and the screen door swung shut behind him. Outside, the stars came out one by one. A coyote called somewhere in the distance. The horses shifted in the corral, settling down for the night, and in the kitchen of the Hayes Ranch, two people sat down to supper together, not as strangers, not as an arrangement, but as something they were only just beginning to understand. Something that felt like the first green shoot pushing up through hard-packed earth. Something worth keeping. There's a quiet that comes after a story like this one. Not the kind that needs filling, just the kind that settles in the chest and stays a while. Maybe you know what it feels like to wait for someone to see you, to stand in a room full of people and wonder if anyone notices you're there. Maybe you've carried something heavy for a long time, a word you never said, a door you never opened, a love you held back because it felt safer that way. Many of us have stood where Caleb stood. Many of us have walked where Emily walked. We've built walls. We've torn them down. We've ridden hard to catch something we almost let slip away. Some of us are still waiting. Some of us are still learning how to speak. It's all right if this story stirred something you weren't expecting. It's okay if it touched a tender place. Some things don't need to be resolved. They just need to be felt, and then, gently, allowed to rest. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.